No, encompassing all sub areas of AI, basically. AI as an objective, as something you want to achieve, and all the means towards that.
Got it.
The video, audio, and text, and so on.
Excellent.
Good.
So we are live.
Okay, so
Let
we are
me give
live.
you the link,
Yeah.
and you can post on your social medias or wherever you choose.
Yeah. For this, I'm going to go into portrait mode just quickly.
Yeah.
Copy
So
screen
the
link.
live ಹೋಗಿ ಎರಡು ನಿಮಿಷ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ we'll start the show.
Okay, the link is on WhatsApp. I'm also putting it on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay.
ಅದು ಥಂಬ್ನೇಲ್ಸ್ ಸಖತ್ತಾಗಿ ಬಂದಿದೆ. 3 ಜನ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ.
Covering all the potential directions.
I know.
Sweet. I think Mandar, when you're back, we can get started.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Okay. I see we have people joining in. Excellent. Okay. I'm streaming. Sweet. All right. Guys, thank you so much for joining in today. Idu Startup Harate episode number 9. This is about scaling your startup. And so today we have Simha Sadasiva, who's the founder and CEO of Usher, based in Santa Clara and also Indian operations. So quickly, Simha, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Lovely, on all ours. So quickly, and of course we have Mandar.
Hello. Of
Sorry.
course, yes.
So okay, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you.
And online ನೀವು ನೋಡ್ತಿರೋರ್ಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಏನಾದ್ರು questions ಇದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ definitely comment in, and then we'll take those questions as we go along. Right. So thank you, Simha. Thank you for joining on a Sunday morning, replacing the show with your run. Right, it means a lot. So typically,
Yeah, the other way around, replacing the run with the show, actually.
So instead of right, so typically what we've done is we've gone ahead and jumped straight into the topic Atharela. But today I want to start out by, instead of jumping straight into scaling, right, I want to know the story of Usher a little bit, because from what I know, that you've been into a different world altogether. Usher shuru ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮುಂಚೆ ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ you Usher started into how do you optimize and solve customer and enterprise and customer integrations problems ಆ ಥರ ಎಲ್ಲ. So how did this start?
Yeah, so I actually started my career in software like most people do, right? I went to UVC, got a computer science degree. Adadmel, I worked in Bangalore for about 3.5 years for a company called BFL Software. Then I moved to the States, was part of a division of Bell Labs, Lucent Technologies, building some research focused products in the voice over IP space. Adadmele, I moved to the Valley in early 2000s, and I was a founding engineer for a company called Veraz Networks.
Mhm.
And Verazali, we were mostly building voice over IP infrastructure for carriers all over the world.
Mhm.
So that was a fascinating journey and a good ride where we scaled a concept into an amazingly broad product where I had tremendous experience marketing and selling that and supporting customers in 40 different countries.
Mhm.
And so because the focus was so much on voice and commoditizing voice, we kind of saw some trends in the way behavior around voice was changing, right? So with the ubiquity and the availability of mobile phones and mobile devices, what I saw early on in 2013, 2014 was that our behavior around connected forms of interactions were changing. Avaga, that was a time when WhatsApp and all these other messaging platforms were really taking off because it was a convenient way for us to interact with our friends and family,
Mhm.
right? So the first aha moment for me was when a friend texted me and asked me if it was okay for him to call me. So that when did you need permission to call me? And then I was like wondering about that. And so that,
Right.
that was a leading indicator that the way we were organizing and interacting in social circles was changing.
Right.
So that was when I decided to um, quit my job, find an opportunity to build an early version of the product to help companies interact the
Uh-huh.
same way people were already interacting in their social circles. So that was the genesis and the starting point for Usher. So our initial idea was to just help companies allow their customers to interact with them through text and messaging based interactions. And
Uh-huh.
organically, in the last 4.5 5 years, we have grown quite a bit into different forms of how that has evolved, right? But
Right.
at the end
Right.
of the day, our focus has always been taking that customer journey, customer interaction, and
Mhm.
digitizing it, automating it, and making that interaction very smooth and friction free.
Right. So mostly ಇವಾಗ ಸದ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಅದಾಗ್ತಿರೋದು through bots and the likes of those, right? ಅಂದ್ರೆ initial interaction. Say if I wanted to talk to any company's customer care, either I go through a bot or then get connected, and then there is maybe a voice call. ಅಥವಾ ಇವಾಗ video is also getting integrated, right?
Yeah.
Usher Ali, what is it exactly that you do? Which is it bringing them all together with automation?
Yeah, yeah. So our core focus is always automation and enabling those interactions
Mm-hmm.
through digital automated means. What I mean by that is, look, there are lots of scenarios where you need to call your insurance company or your bank or your financial services company, right? There are lots of reasons for them to reach out to you. Maybe your credit card on their file has expired. Maybe there's no beneficiary information. So there are lots of back and forth where the journey can either start from one direction or another direction. Irrespective of where that conversation starts, you need to be able to interact and complete that entire journey end to end without having to put a knowledge worker or a contact center person. So we allow these interactions to happen over what we call multi channels, right? The
Got
conversation can start on a voice channel, but we can allow that to be switched over to a SMS based text message or a WhatsApp or any of these other digital channels, including taking emails that come in from customers,
it.
understanding those intents of those emails and digitizing that, automating that end to end without without a contact center person or a knowledge worker having to get involved. So
Nice.
that's a
So,
summary of what this looks like.
so
Go ahead,
Sima,
Manan.
for your clients, of
Really.
course, on the face of it, the solution that you provide is you automate their customer interactions for them. But I'm sure that internally, one of the things that they benefit the most from is process discovery, right? It is during the course of all this automation and stitching things together that they realize just exactly how many different steps were the knowledge workers going through, right,
Yeah,
in order to say resolve a ticket, right?
that's right.
So what's your view on that? So since we're talking about scaling, I suspect that it's about identifying the right kind of value to deliver to your clients, right? So is process discovery the primary value that you would say you deliver to your clients?
Illa. So process discovery, andre, there are specific process discovery products and platforms that are already trying to solve that problem, and that's not our
Right.
core focus. So
Okay.
we have solved a few problems already, right, for insurance companies, whether it is to help them with their what is known as intake journey, right? You apply for brokers send emails with census information, or you're trying to apply for a new life insurance application, or you're trying to file a claim. I'm just taking insurance
Right.
as a
Running
vertical because
example.
that's an area we focus in. So there
Right.
are well-known use cases and there are well-known problems that are already articulated. The problem statement is clear, and so for those types of problem statements, we kind of show them through what we call as a low-code, no-code platform, the ability to orchestrate those processes and drive that entire journey through an automated bot.
Got it. So, like talking through this and then all the solution that Asher offers, Athara, adikinda munche, when you said the idea hit me and things like those, right? One thing that I realized all along in up until now, for the last 8 episodes, we've mostly talked to B2C companies. And there are
Hmm.
who've had products. We've focused on culture, Athara, ela. So, moving away from the idea alone, but the process of starting the startup itself, uh, how did you think that, okay, let me start this, I have this solution, let me start this enterprise company, because that seems like an intimidating idea in itself.
Rarely things materialize the way you envision it, but you have to take the plunge. If you want to swim first, you have to get into the water, alva ಅದೇ ತರ. So yeah, for us the starting point was to quit our jobs, because I think for most people they think that they can moonlight and they can do something, but it rarely works that way, right? If you really
Uh-huh.
want to build a company, I think about these startup journeys as decade long journeys, right?
Mhm.
If you're not willing to do this for 10 years, right, you shouldn't even think about it. But you should.
Especially true for enterprise and Tansata, B2B and Tansata. Is that
Yeah,
true across?
I think it's different for different segments. Very rarely do you see an overnight runaway success,
Right.
right? Within 18 months, 2 years, you'll see all these hockey stick representations, but very rarely do they
and
actually
the
materialize that way.
and the unicorns.
Yes, yes, but most of these are rooted in a lot of grunt work, right? So you hear only the success stories, but
Exactly.
behind every one of these, there are 90 other companies that didn't make it, right? So
Uh,
I think uh, the fact that you have to not worry about success, but really focus on what you're trying to solve, focusing on the problem statement. I think that's the that's the first thing. And
uh,
for us, I think again, look, I think more companies fail because of founder misalignment, right? So
mhm.
you can't do these types of journeys unless you have really good co-founders, right? So I was lucky that way. Very close friend of mine, Henry Peter Anta. He and I, we go back a long time. For
Mhm.
almost 20 plus years, we've been friends and co-workers and colleagues. So we kind of
Okay.
know each other very well. And so when we decided to do this, we both quit our jobs and started this together.
So did it help that Henry was also from similar background and he's had your journey of sorts because you've been co-workers?
Yes, I think our experiences are different and our focus in our skill sets are different, but that's where it also helps that we complement each other. But the fact that we kind of understood each other, knew what was the problem that we were going after, and it's almost like having a partner in crime, partner in a difficult journey, right? So
Got
you'll run into more ups than downs, right? So being able to have a partner that will navigate alongside you, I think that is very
So,
important aspect of this.
got it.
so I'm
So one,
I'm 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 curious. So, talking about co-founder alignments and misalignments, and you said you and Henry have a very different set of skills and obviously different worldviews.
Yeah.
My question really is: at what point do misalignments start becoming obvious? What should startup founders be looking out for? What are those warning signals?
I think I've seen more misalignments happen because they're not very clear on number one, the equity structure itself, who owns what.
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Two, uh, who owns what part of the responsibility, right? So if there are too many product focused founders, I've seen this where they're trying to it's like too many cooks in the kitchen, right? So you need to have a good division of responsibilities. um, and look, I think I've also seen where when the journey gets really difficult, the lack of respect, or the typical things that go bad in any relationship, like in a marriage, right? It's one of trust and integrity and being honest with each other. Those are all the same fabric of every relationship, no different in a startup.
totally. So quickly to draw attention to the kind of audience we have today, Ivatanchur, it's a mixed audience. We also have students of college, of our college. Mandar and I went to Basveshwar Engineering College, Bagalkote. So
Hmm.
Ali, the alumni of that, and then also students from India have joined this. So I'm going to shift left a little bit and then
Sure.
ask you questions on the early phase as well before we jump strictly on Edu. We can keep it quick on that aspect too. So, Athara, you got a great founder, you got a great idea. You did vet the idea initially and then got your market validation and where this is a genuine problem, just not my problem. More people have this and that. So, and then when you started that, how did you start out? Ellargu first year question: how do I start with that basic funding? Anta, right? And how did your funding journey begin?
For us, again, you probably have heard this a few times from different people. They describe it differently. Some people may say it's like driving a car. You go a certain distance, you change from first gear to second gear, and then second to third, and so on. The funding is also very similar, right? So you basically need to have enough capital to take you a certain distance for a certain number of time. And in our case, the sources of our early funding was mostly from my social network, my friends, um, friends of friends who believe in the people more than anything else, right? I think there are lots of, and that's one of the great things about the valley. These things don't happen in too many other places that I know of, right? In Silicon Valley, one of the things that really works well is this network of angels. They're truly angels, because the word doesn't, it actually means the same thing to me and Henry, right?
Right.
The people who place a bet on you,
Right.
on the fact that if you're smart enough, you will kind of navigate this through the rough and the tumble. So we raised $500,000, in about 3.5, 4 weeks. right? From our network. I would not stop talking about my idea, whether it was on a run with a friend or a hike, or in a karaoke session. In fact, one of our early angels was someone I discovered that he was an angel investor during a karaoke session. So
Nice.
Oh,
um, and from that point on, we kind of raised we raised about $2 million of seed capital because it got us going. We didn't take institutional money for about 2.5 years, and then we raised a venture round. Yeah.
so
Got it.
a follow-up to Vinay's question. What part of the whole scaling beast, right, do you reckon is funding, right? So how much of attention do you need to pay to funding if you have to achieve scale? Because I imagine there are several other things that you have to hire now, right?
I
Your
think there are two
operations, your
different
product
things.
itself.
I think the scale and funding. Look, I think all great companies need investor backing, and so if you want to build a really big good business, I think it is through investors, right? The investors are a big part of your success, and you need to be mature enough to realize that and understand that, and not worry too much about all of the other things that come with taking institutional capital. But scaling is a slightly different thing. I think scale means you can actually scale team, you can scale product, you can scale the repeatability of your
Right.
solution itself. So
Right.
for me, I think they're different things. Scaling the product came naturally to us because we had done that a few times before, and so that was almost a given for us. um, where scaling teams, I think in this day and age where everyone is fighting pitched battles for talent, I think scaling the team is an incredibly hard thing to do, particularly for companies with limited capital, limited resources. So you have to get creative, you have to go to your network. And we, again, were very lucky because we had a network of people that we had worked with that we could either go back and recruit them again or enlist them into our journey, right? Or some new people came on board based on our work network that we had created. From scaling the solution itself, I think this is where you need capital, right? The ability to go reach enterprise customers requires good sales and marketing people, right? And that's where it does cost quite a chunk of change to hire good sales and marketing people, and that's how you should be thinking about when you raise capital. The reason to raise capital is for scaling the team, uh, scaling the use cases and repeatable use cases by deploying you know boots on the ground that you need.
Got it. So
Makes
one
sense.
of the common things that we hear when scaling up a team, per se, and when we are hiring and things like those, common line in a startup is always be hiring, and then always be hiring and always be fundraising, right? So typically, always be hiring is comparatively easier if you can pay them, but there is how do you do that? How do you bring people on board who are key to you? You know that someone is a absolute resource, but how do you ensure that you can bring them on board and not wait till you have the right kind of funding? Especially you are at a stage when you're like $2 million. To bring key people at that point might be an expensive one in terms of if not for equity on the salary front and things like those.
Look, I think hiring doesn't always only mean that you have to hire full-time employees, right?
Right.
Um, I think we have looked at a number of creative ways to get work done in general. So we
Mhm.
have, in our early part of our journey, we had a lot of friends who did some pro bono work for us. We had a patent lawyer who did pro bono work for us. We had we relied on friends who wrote software for us in exchange for some equity and grants, right? So, but there are platforms like Upwork which provide you specific, expertise, and you can go to those resources.
Right.
So, hiring doesn't always mean you have to hire full-time resources. In fact, interns have been a very big part of our journey. I mean, right from day one for us, we have a very strong intern program. We attracted some really smart kids who came in and did a bunch of work for us. Um,
which means that the founders also have to take responsibility for ensuring continuity, because interns and part-time employees and
that's
angel
where you have
contributors.
to, there is no concept of delegation and
Right.
letting someone
Right.
run with it, right? So you have to be
Right.
all hands on deck, and you have
On
to
top of
be,
it the whole time.
you
Right.
have to know what is going on. Yeah.
So
Right.
quickly, I want to interrupt and then say that I'm just your BB Jagdish has joined us
Oh, great.
now. So yeah, so to if you Google him, you'll know exactly who BB Jagdish is. So he has a meeting soon. But thank you so much for jumping on the call quickly. So we were talking about scaling, and then this is good. So yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me
Good
also?
morning, Jagdish.
Hi, good morning, Simha. Congratulations.
Thank you. Hey,
Awesome.
Giriraj.
Great to see you, and great to see
Likewise.
all the progress you have made.
Likewise.
Is the conversation going on in English or in Kannada?
The Kanglish.
Kannadist. ಹೌದಾ?
So we're mixing it up. So ನಾವು ಅದೇ ಇವಾಗ ತಾನೇ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ hiring ಬಗ್ಗೆ, and then the common line in a startup is always be hiring ಅಂತ ಅಂತಿರ್ತಾರೆ. So we're talking about hiring philosophies.
Oh, nice.
Right. So and then Simha was talking about you need not always hire full time guys. You can take help in all the form and factor, including interns and that. So a
Correct.
lot of people who are listening are students.
Always hiring and always fundraising. Alva Simha?
ಹೌದು ಖಂಡಿತ. Always
That-
looking for capital.
That doesn't mean that doesn't mean you are going to bring people on board or you're going to be raising money, but you are creating awareness and you are creating the pipeline.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
exactly.
So, great timing for BB to join as well, because my next question was going to be exactly that. Always be fundraising. So I've been fortunate to be part of early stage startups as well, which have, I want to say fortunately or unfortunately, have failed at fundraising early as well. Like Series A agittu.
Hey, failure is always a learning lesson, okay?
Exactly. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ but just in case that founder is listening, I say unfortunately failed. ಇಲ್ದೇ ಇದ್ರೆ I treat it as right. So ಅಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಏನಾಗಿತ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ early stage we had $2 million exactly. Assured ಹೆಂಗಿತ್ತು early stage ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹಂಗೇನೆ we felt like we were doing the right thing, and then we were going up to the next level ಅಂತ. And then the runway always kept getting shorter for obvious reasons. ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ but funding did not happen ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ to go to that next level. Series A ಇಂದ Series B ಹೋಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ. So in terms of fundraising, is there a specific time that you start looking for money, although you just said always be fundraising?
I have always focused on making sure that there is at least a 1-year ramp, right? A 12-month ramp is it's almost like a low fuel indicator ತರ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕಾರ್ನಲ್ಲಿ. So you have to be watching out for that, and these things take time, right? So for people to learn about you, and even if you just start to, let's say you have everything ready, your deck is ready, you have 40-50 investors list of those that's ready. Just the diligence process, the process of pitching, getting meetings organized, it's a 3 to 4 month process just in that itself, and then 6 to 8 weeks of diligence after that. So you should think about that as at least a minimum of 6 months. And yeah, you can't stop running your business for 6 months. So that's what makes it so difficult, because
Num cases specifically exactly other phase and we were pivoting on the idea too, and not exactly, it was not a crazy pivot, but it was more of a going a different direction, from B2C to B2B ಆಗೋಗ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ from a customer consumer solution ಇಂದ SDK solution ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ. That was another challenge for us. Sorry, Jagdish, ನೀವ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರಿ, like I think on the same front, what happens if there is a company going through pivot, especially you as an investor, how do you look at it?
You're going through a fundraising mode?
Fundraising, and the company is also trying to get their idea right.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, funding is all about possibility of the success and valuation, right?
Mhm.
So if you are pivoting, you are changing the whole thing, then you as a founder have to be reasonable to accept a valuation that the investor is willing to give you, because whatever you did in the past did not work out. So now you are on to something new, which means if an investor believes in that new idea, then because you are starting from scratch, maybe you will have some IP, maybe some code that you have written, or maybe something that you have written that you can leverage.
Mm-hmm.
But the valuation has to be different in that case. So you need to be thinking about it. Going back to what Simha was saying in terms of preparing ahead of time, the other benefit of preparing ahead of time is you should never be in a situation when you are going for funding that you are running out of cash.
Mm-hmm.
Because moment you show that you are going to be running out of cash, then the investor will be in the driver's seat. Because moment he knows that you are running out of money, then you have no other choice than accepting the valuation that the investor is giving you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point.
On that note, my question to Jagdish is, so at what point should an early stage startupper even think about approaching an investor for raising funds? For example, like you said, they may be going through an evolution of the idea itself. So if they go too early, then they're still trying to shape things up, and therefore they have to be okay with the valuation that is suggested by the investor. They have to be reasonable, but that means that they are diluting probably too much stock too early. So at what stage should they really start approaching an investor? When is a good time?
See, ultimately, there is a lot of parameters in the success of funding, right? It depends on your pedigree. So when you talk about pedigree, it depends on what you have done in the past, right? What you have accomplished that is visible to the investor or for anyone else. Or have you built a company in the past which, let's say you built it to be a successful company, so you have some great experience out of that. And you built a company and you have failed once, so it's even better actually, because you have also learned a lot of lessons out of that, right? And sometimes the educational degree where you get your degree from, sometimes those things also play a role in terms of opening the door. I mean, ultimately you still have to prove that you have something that can potentially turn into a company, right? So all these things actually matter. So there are entrepreneurs who have raised money just based on PowerPoint presentations. There are entrepreneurs who have built the prototype, they have built some proof points, they have some references in terms of customers standing up and saying that, okay, if you solve this problem for me, then I'm actually interested, potentially I'm interested to buy your product. So then you can request that customer, hey, I'm going to raise some money, and will you be interested in talking to this venture capitalist to give a reference to me? And many a times, right, these customers who are testing out or tested out your algorithms or prototype or whatever, and if they really feel your product is solving a critical issue for them, then they'll say, yeah, sure, I'll take a call. So all those things actually help in accelerating this funding process.
Right.
It will be interesting to hear from Simha as to how exactly he raised the money day one.
Yeah.
Did you raise based on a PowerPoint presentation, or did you raise based on?
We built some prototype. We came from this landscape, so we kind of knew where the trends were. So before we even asked for our first, $25,000 check in Mission Coffee, that's where our first check came from a friend. We had a working prototype. We could demonstrate what we were trying to do. But for institutional investment, it was different. We already had 2 or 3 really big name customers who were using our product. We had a couple of contracts, and that's what led us to raise our Series A.
Got it.
So he said that he wouldn't stop talking about his startup even at karaoke bars. So in my mind, it was like he and his team are setting up a track, and Simha is crooning the pitch on the microphone.
So Ali, our fundraising process in that, when you are from an early stage itself. So yeah, one of the things that I have noticed is one of the questions is when you say raise a Series B from Series A, the the question also is, why are you raising money, and how are you going to use that? Is that still a valid question at that stage? Do you still, who's sort of proven what you're doing until now with revenue and things like those, can you just say, I know exactly what I'm doing, just give me the money, Anatara, if you believe in it? Is that the thought process?
I wish Jagdish would write checks that way. But
I wish it is that simple. Right, Simha?
Totally my question.
I wish it is that simple.
Usually, look, I think at every stage of the company, you have to demonstrate why you need capital, right? So for us, I think as we've gone about at different phases, we have shown a roadmap of what it takes for us to scale the company from a certain revenue run rate to the next rate. So I think about them as orbits. And to go from one orbit to another orbit, you need that escape velocity, right? And so that escape velocity comes in the form of your existing customers buying a lot more product from you, or you have a lot of new customers coming in. And you see all these demand that you can forecast, that you can actually show some early proof points, because of which you need to accelerate either the rate of your go-to-market or the rate at which you build product. In most cases, it's a combination of both.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This applies at all stages. This applies at when you go from seed to Series A, you need to demonstrate why you need the cash for. So usually the cash is for making sure the product is complete, making sure you can run some proof of concepts with customers, making sure you can build a small sales team to go win some customers, and perhaps maybe even start some small marketing campaigns and so on and so forth. Then when you go to Series B, perhaps maybe you already have 10, 15, 20 customers by then. Then, you need to expand geographically into other regions. You need to increase your lead generation activities, and you need to grow your product from MVP into mainstream, right? So that is how the investment in Series B would be. So then Series C would be, how do I really scale my sales? So from 5 sales teams to maybe I want to go to 15 sales teams or 20 sales teams. I want to build channel. I want to build other business development partnerships and strategic partnerships and so on and so forth. So each one shows an investment that you need to make to move, as Simha said, to move from one orbit to another orbit. Yeah, that is how you have to look at the funding. Even when you go IPO, as a matter of fact, right? Even at IPO level, even when you have scaled your company to significant heights, still you have to tell, why are you raising this money? Right. It's not, don't tell me it is just to give you liquidity. So the money is raised because you need the money to scale the company to the newer heights.
Right. So although we will in the next episode, I'm plugging in for the next episode, we'll talk about board of directors and the investors who are coming and all of those things. Quickly, as you bring these investors in, how important is it to make sure that the entrepreneurs and all the other investors are on the same page? I have seen that there are times when the investors themselves are not on the same page about the direction. is it always the CEO or the founding team's call? ಯಾವ direction ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅಥವಾ board's call ಆ ಥರ ಇರುತ್ತೆ? How does that work?
Simha.
You want me to take that question? Okay, sure.
Sure.
You are the center of attraction.
Jagdish has a lot more experience in the boardroom than I have. But look, I think it's always, you can never delegate that responsibility. As CEO, it's the CEO's responsibility to chart the course for the company. No two ways about it. The board's there for making sure they're the guardrails. They want to make sure that the corporate governance and the structure is all intact, and they ask you the right questions, and they make sure. But at the end of the day, it's the CEO's responsibility to make sure that the company is on the rails. That's how I think about it. Jagdish, what do you think?
Yeah. So let me give you a picture where at the end of the day, this is the beauty of capitalism. So at the end of the day, everybody in the company, the only goal is the green. Only goal, right? How do I translate my sweat equity into something valuable? Or how do I turn my investment into something bigger, right? And for that to happen, you need to build a product, you need to solve a problem, you need to satisfy the customers, you need to execute, you need to grow the company, you need to build all different aspects of taking that product and bringing that into the market and scaling. All different aspects requires investment. So that's where investors are putting the money and entrepreneurs are putting their sweat equity. So that is the beautiful match that happens. So which means at the end of the day, there is only one goal: to make the company successful, right? So whatever differences they have, right? Whether I'm a Democratic Party or I'm a Republican Party or I'm something else, that is all outside the boardroom.
Right.
In the company, everybody is aligned to only one thing. And the job of the CEO is to make sure that, this is the progress I'm making. These are the challenges. This is where I need your help. This is where I need the funding. This is what I need to do, right? So he needs to explain as to, if I'm expanding into Europe, so if I'm a CEO, if I'm expanding into Europe, right, people will have different opinions, which is good. I mean, that's what you want. You want the board members to have a different opinion, because they may have seen some failures in the past. They may have seen expenses going up dramatically when you go to Europe, right? And there are some labor laws that you need to be aware of. You cannot just fire people that easily. You have to give 6 months of salary and things like that. So the job of the board is to alert the CEO that, hey, have you really thought through, or do you still want to expand this more within the United States itself before going into these other countries, right?
That makes sense.
All those things is what the classic discussion that happens in the board meeting. And it's the job of the CEO to convince when objections are raised. It's the job of the CEO to convince.
So, sorry, Mandar, just a second. Sorry to interrupt. I know BB has to leave now at 9:45. But and we'll talk more in the next episode. But before you go, do you want to say something about Simha or Asher?
Yes.
That we should know?
Yes. Yeah. No, I really want to say something about Simha. I have seen Simha for the last 4 or 5 years, and I have seen him how he has gone through step by step, and I've even seen him offering his product at the Thai conferences for Thai to use. In fact, I used it when I was moderating a session. The questions that you are getting from the audience, how he was creating the workflows and so on and so forth. So he's a real example of an entrepreneurial journey of starting from one man, going through this whole zigzag portion of ups and downs. So what you're seeing today is a Simha or an Asher that has sort of reached a stage where there is a go-to-market fit. There is some good sales momentum. Investors are coming in and funding the company, right? You're only seeing the good part of Simha and Asher at this point of time. But the journey that he has gone through over the last 4 years is the most difficult part for any entrepreneur. So I want the entrepreneurs who are listening to think that, most of the times you only hear the good part of the story. So you don't hear all the challenges and all the issues. So if you are looking at becoming an entrepreneur, then this is a 3 to 4 year journey just to get to a stage where, okay, I have a chance to succeed. I mean, you still don't know whether you're going to succeed or not, because some big company may come up with your product and they will marginalize what you have done. You don't know that. But at least you're at a stage right now that, okay, I have a chance to succeed. So that takes about 3 to 4 years minimum, which is what Simha has gone through over the last 4 years. And, hats off to his patience, his ability to get through those difficult phases. Because think of, from a mindset point of view, you have nobody to talk to, right? You have nobody to talk to, and you have to deal with all the problems yourself. And it's really fantastic what Simha has done, and kudos to his family for the wonderful support he has got. Without any of that, right, he wouldn't be where he is today. And we really want to wish him all the best. And we will be very, very proud of the fact that a fellow Kannadiga, someone that we know very well, is going to make it big. So I just want to wish him all the best. And I really appreciate both of you for providing an amazing platform for entrepreneurs like this to come and share the story.
Thank you.
Bibi, thank you for the kind words. None of this is possible without all of the guidance, mentorship, and the advice that I have had the benefit of. So you have heard me pitch many, many times, and there are so many of my fellow people here, entrepreneurs, friends, TiCon members, TiCharter members who've been an amazing support system for me. And so they have kind of kept pushing me ahead. So this is not just my success. It's a collective ecosystem here that has enabled us to, keep moving forward.
Very nice. Good luck.
Thank you, Jagdish.
Very
Thanks.
good. See you guys.
Thank you for joining. Yeah.
Thank you for joining, Bibi. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's a really glowing tribute that Bibi paid you, Simha. Take a bow, my man. I think it must make you feel really fulfilled and really, really good.
It's a good, Bibi has been an amazing mentor, not just to me, but to a lot of people here in the Valley. He has seen this so many times, both as an investor, also as an entrepreneur himself, right? So I think his words mean a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And exactly. And for a man like him to speak so highly about you, that certainly is a special thing.
Right. And I have to mention, I run to him. I've done my pitches to him all the time. Exactly the same, right? And then he's always a call away. Right? Like he mentioned about the investors and being on the same page. And then you said about it is finally your responsibility to take the ship forward. And even Asher, I'd like to believe that the game is only getting started for you in a way. Yeah, right?
Yeah. That's the reason I told you, I think about this as a decade-long journey, right? So we are in the bottom of the second inning, baseball analogy.
Right.
And I think the possibilities are endless. Again, I think we'll realize how much momentum we can keep acquiring. And so every company has to go through that discovery process, when they stall, when they can continue to keep growing. And that's what will dictate how long it will take for you to eventually either get acquired or become a public company.
Got it.
So Simha, earlier you spoke about the rate at which you're developing your product and the rate at which you're going to the market, right? And if there is and several times we do see that there is a dissonance there between those two, right? So my question to you is, is it how fair is it, or from a strategic point of view, how good would it be for a CEO to go to an investor and say, hey, can you get your skin in the game in more than one way? I'm not just asking for money from you, I am also asking you to open doors for me. I'm asking you to help me with my GTM, for example, or help me maybe generate leads, right? Does it work that way?
Yes, I think good investors always will be on the lookout for the companies that they invest in. And we have definitely had that good fortune, right, of our current investors opening up doors, whether it is to bring in talent into the company, whether it is to bring in advisors into the company, or whether it is to introduce you to people who may take a look at you. See, at the end of the day, as BV also was saying, eventually you have to prove that the product is needed. No one will buy from you or pay you a dollar or a dime unless it actually creates value. But I think these knocks on the door that they do for you or on your behalf are very helpful, right? As
Yeah,
as a brand that is less known in the market, or as a person who may not necessarily be as known in the industry, acquiring talent, acquiring customers require a lot of help, and good investors will definitely open those doors for you.
right.
So when on that note, as an investor, this is something that happened to me personally, but very early in the phase. But because you talked about getting acquired and or going the other route, right? When you're fundraising, and at that point in time, ನನಗೆ personally ಆಗಿದ್ದ story ಏನಂತಂದ್ರೆ, I was pitching in very early stage. I was pitching an SDK, and then I was told that, hey, why do you want to go through that entire journey? Instead, do this at this person who was at a massive organization. He said, come just do this here. Do this here, and then you will get the organization, you'll get all sorts of support, and you will get all the autonomy to say execute your vision on the product and other, right? It seems well aligned at that point in time, but how and when do you know whether you want to be acquired or you want to have your solo as in the company's journey?
I think the market conditions will dictate that, right? If you can keep growing and scaling your business yourself without needing to be part of a bigger machinery, then you can keep going as far as you can possibly go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, I think what happens is you will experience those, the velocity of the growth reducing, either because you need tremendous more capital to acquire the customers, or you run into competitive forces.
Mm-hmm.
That's when companies will need to be part of a bigger engine, right? So they can leverage the sales channels, the channel relationships in the mothership, so to speak. So you can actually see the dreams of your vision getting realized through a larger organization that has a more ground game covered, right? So that becomes obvious as you start to experience those sales motions.
It's more of a call you take on based on all the other things, variables involved, and right?
Yeah.
So now that we are at the stage where it is, I want to take a question from the audience as well. There is the question is really, what is an ideal startup environment, Anta? But I want to change it to more the conversation that we are going right from the beginning on how the company, how it has grown through the scaling process. How do you ensure your values are intact and it is not diluted? It could be culture, focus, ಅಥವಾ execution, ಅಥವಾ even for that matter, say contributing to open source community or something like that. Early you might have that ideas, but how do you ensure everything from an environment and an ecosystem standpoint, it stays on?
Yeah, company culture is a key ingredient. We have seen this, right? I mean, for those of you in the Bay Area, we have seen the warriors, dominating, right? Just because you bring in superstars doesn't guarantee you a championship, right? You know what I mean, right? I think it's the cohesiveness of the team that becomes so important. So you have to make sure that you're creating a melting pot of positivity and positive culture. And so at Usher, we have always focused on an open culture. um, we have some really good heavy hitters or superstars, but they're more team players than they are superstars. So that's the way I think about it, right? And it's eventually everyone aligning to the mission statement of the company, right? And it's the collective individuals uh, coming together to create greatness rather
Right.
than individual
Right.
greatness.
So do you still
I think
interview everyone you hire?
Mostly, yes. Either me or my co-founder, one of us, we are part of the interview committee. It's not possible to say.
how big is the team, Simha?
We are still a young company. We are about 60 people
Okay.
and growing.
Right.
Okay. So you were talking about superstars, and yeah, I think it's also evident why you have those superstars. So almost all the 60 people, you have invested yourself, your own time in selecting the right people, and so you've picked people who players who are as good at providing an assist as they are at shooting the goal itself. So I think that's what the collaborativeness and the whole cohesiveness of the team comes into picture. So we are nearing the end of our time. So I want to put one more question in front of you. So we have talked about scaling in terms of looking for funding, in terms of building a culture and various aspects, right? So when it comes to issues like scale, we have talked about building a team, raising funds. We have talked about finding customers. What else should one be looking out for? What other issues, what other aspects of a startup should one be addressing as part of the scale process?
I think typically when you grow, you tend to broaden your market reach, right? And that's where usually companies run into some challenges. You may have focused on a particular industry, but as you expand into another vertical or another industry, you need to be able to speak that language, speak that the value in that particular vertical. And that's where bringing in experts that can speak that lingo is so important. And that's something that we are also going through here at Asher. We kind of knew where we needed to be, what we were building, what value, but to exactly speak to that buyer persona, you really need to bring in the industry experience and the industry expertise. And too often, I think companies try to be too many things to too many people, and it may not necessarily work. And so focus, being very targeted about what problems in what industries that you're solving, and very clearly articulating that use case to that value is a key ingredient as companies scale, as they expand verticals, as they grow even their own product capability set.
Got it. Got it. So again, before we wrap it up, just another question, Illy, online Illy. Amok Deshpande is asking why being an optimist is not always the best. But do you have thought on being optimistic versus practical? I guess the journey makes you a little practical.
I would definitely take an optimist over a pessimist, but yes, you have to be a realist. What is that joke, right? An optimist will hope for the wind direction to sail, but a realist will adjust the sails of the
Sales.
boat, right? So I would rather be that. But look, I think these journeys are hard. You have to visualize success to some extent. And that means that you have to put blinders on naysayers and people who won't believe in what you're saying or believe in the idea itself. So to some extent, you have to almost have that reality distortion in you to believe that you can actually pull this off, pull this through. So you need a healthy dose of a pragmatic approach as well as optimism and being able to chart the course for where you need to get to.
Right,
So
right.
with the benefit of hindsight, if you were to pick one thing that you could do differently in your entrepreneurship journey, what would it be?
Uh, um, I don't know. That's a hard question. I haven't thought too much about it because for us, there have been a lot of things that have, that we've gotten lucky with. Okay, we've met a lot of great people, great investors. Maybe getting a little bit more focused early on rather than being broad. That would be one thing that I think I would probably say if I can take back, because time is your enemy. You lose time, right? If we could have brought the focus that we got 3 years into our journey sooner, I think we would have probably gotten to where we needed to get to much, much faster.
And I think that's wonderful advice to every entrepreneur. Actually, be more focused, as focused as possible, as early as possible.
But again, like if I asked you this question earlier, you probably wouldn't know that you are not focused, right? You would say,
right.
I'm as focused as I can be.
I can
right?
be.
But, so Athar, but again, great insights. But on that note of being focused, I definitely want to ask you on the non-work aspect of things, right? So before we wrap this up, we clearly know you're a singer by now with
wow.
Okay. And the runner as well. Adre, how and startup journeys are known to be excruciating, right?
Yeah.
So how have you maintained that balance and what have you done?
I have had some coping mechanisms that I have built over time, right? And to me, uh, being in good physical condition is a very important aspect, right? Being able to um, be physically active, and so that's why I overemphasize how important, getting a good long walk or a good run or going to the gym or a hike or whatever it is that you like to do. Being in good physical condition just builds stamina, because some days you have to go 18, 20 hours.
Right.
You just need the physical stamina, right? You may be super smart, mentally you may be able to do it, but physically you need to be able to do it. So
I'm curious, apart from an emphasis on physical health, what other coping mechanisms do you usually fall back on?
Family, of course, is a big part of my own journey. I have a beautiful family. My parents lived with me. I have an amazing spouse. My wife has been incredibly supportive through this entire journey. There's not a day where she made me feel like I should not have done this. I'm really grateful for her. This is as much her success as it is mine when we cross the finish line. And again, I think raising a son, has been another one of gifts that I truly enjoy, being a dad. So I've always been around. I'm a tutor. We golf together. We bike together. So there are lots of things that I do with my son. So thankfully,
although I'm not sure there are too many fathers who would list raising a son as a stress busting or coping mechanism.
we've been blessed. We've been really blessed with a boy who's very easy to raise, who's been very easy to raise. So
excellent.
Yeah, no, but Simha, thank you so much. Now, ಎಲ್ಲ aspect ಮೇಲೂ ಮಾತಾಡಿದೀವಿ, from culture to scaling to fundraising. I think we touched upon everything. I can clearly tell we'll need you back on one of the episodes again.
I was going to say that, my open offer to anyone who's listening is, look, I think I've been a benefactor of so many people helping me along. mentoring me, showing me the path forward. So I am a resource for anyone that can use my help. But again, my time is limited with everything that's going on. But if you're serious about something that you're doing, you're committed to the cause, and you need some help, I am a resource. I'm happy to,
Yeah, and then
find
it
time
didn't
to
take
make it
any
work.
convincing on our part to call you onto the show either. Like you quickly responded for a text, and this means so much, Simha. This means a lot. Really, thank you.
I'm
Absolutely.
happy to be here. Thank you for chatting today. Yeah.
Absolutely.
This has been a really fun episode, Sim. I've really enjoyed this. It's been extremely insightful. And like Vinay says, we would definitely need you back here for when we can finally say we are a very successful podcast, and when we look at inviting some of our celebrity guests back, you're going to be one of them.
Let's hope so. I'm gonna
Definitely.
keep working until then.
And for the people listening in, Asher has a great intern policy, and or even otherwise, do go and check out Asher and then see all the good work that they're doing, and then feel free to reach out to Simha. Or yeah, if you have any thoughts about the podcast, do write in to us. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe to our channel as well for more notifications. So yeah, with that note, we'll
And stay
end.
home and stay safe.
Absolutely. Take care
Wear
of
a mask
yourselves, guys.
if you're going out.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.